Also, consumer publications. These are your basic magazines that you can find at any local bookstore. And consumer publications are incredibly valuable because why? This is what your customer is reading. If I have a dog or a fish or a cat or a horse, what magazine am I going to read? I'm going to read these publications. Where am I going to get ideas for products? Where am I going to read the product reviews? Where am I going to find out that there's a hot new cat collar that just came out that everybody is talking about? As a customer, I'm going to find it in a consumer publication. As a seller, I want to know what my customers are reading so that when I read in Cat Fancy that, diamond cat collars are the next big thing, and I go to that trade show, where am I going to go? I'm going to go find the vendors who are selling these cat collars that I already knew about because I read about them in the consumer publications. These are all idea hotspots. Even your local stores. We have a store in Seattle called Mud Bay, great store, and tons, they're really good at sourcing. So you can go in there and you're like, oh, where did this is a new product. I haven't seen this. And you can even ask the salesperson, this is new. I haven't seen this. And they have a really good sales staff and they'll tell you, oh yeah, we just got this in and it's selling like crazy. Bingo. What am I going to do? I'm going to go to eBay and I'm going to see if it's represented there. And if it's not, and I already have done some research to know it's a hot product or it's selling well locally, what am I going to do? I'm going to try and find a source for that product. And of course, the internet. The internet, looking at other websites that sell pet products, phenomenal idea hotspot. Why? Because you can leverage their sourcing expertise. Now, does this mean that you're going to try and steal ideas from other stores? No. You may go to 10 different websites and get a list of 50 different products, and by putting it through its paces that we just talked about and looking at the marketplace on eBay, decide that really only 3 to 5 of those products are right for you. But I just wanted to point something out here. This was a page 1 Google search on pet supplies. Who do we have here on page 1? We have eBay. And what page are they sending the customers to? The category page, the one I first showed you. So does it make sense to know what products eBay is promoting on the internet and to sync up your sourcing with those products? Yeah, absolutely. So with idea hotspots, basically what you're doing is you're connecting the dots. You're putting together the pieces of a puzzle. So maybe you read it in a magazine and that was one clue, and then you saw the products at the local mall and you did your research to notice that one seller seems to be doing well with them on eBay. Then you're going to source your inventory either at trade shows or online, and this is how you start to put together the pieces of this puzzle to know what your buyers want and so that you can make an informed sourcing decision based on what you see with your research is going to do well. So in our smart sourcing checklist, we've talked about a merchandise to marketplace match. I've showed you how to frequent idea hotspots to get an unlimited amount of ideas for products to sell. In the interest of time, we're going to zip through real quickly, paying attention to trends, documenting, and testing, and then we will move on to multi-channel sourcing. I know we're running short on time here. So paying attention to trends. One of the first things that I learned in college, walked into our retail merchandising 101 class, and the teacher has "the trend is your friend" written on the board. And we're all like, oh, that's kind of catchy. Well, it's cute, but it's serious. Knowing how products are, where they are in the product cycle. Is consumer interest trending up or is consumer interest trending down? Getting back to the pet niche, what types of products are people buying for their pets? Are they buying luxury dog houses or are they buying igloo dog houses? Are they buying eco-friendly, allergy-free pet beds, or are they going with something like a natural cotton or a synthetic pet bed? You have to have that information before you source those products, because otherwise you might find a great deal on the igloo doghouse and you're like, wow, I know these used to sell really well on eBay like 2 years ago, and look, I can get them for 10% on the dollar. And then, because you aren't familiar with the trends, what do you find out? There's a reason why you can get them for 10% on the dollar, because no one wants them anymore. The trend is now towards wood, solid wood dog houses. So paying attention to the trends in your category, very, very important. Now you can use Terapeak to get trending information about what's happening now, but you also have to read the trade publications and go to the trade shows to understand what's happening with your customers in the future. There's also a tool I like and something that I teach about in my product sourcing course called Google Insights, which will actually show you based on Google searches what products are trending. There's trend reports you can get. There's tons of ways to get at this trend information. You have to make it your business to know, because if you don't know what's trending on the front end, people say, oh, I don't have time for all that trending stuff. Well, here's what you end up with. You end up with spending your time on the back end marking down products that didn't sell because they were at the end of the product life cycle and nobody wants them anymore. So paying attention to trends is key. Now, I've told you a lot of different things, and your head's probably spinning right now. You're like, okay, how am I supposed to remember all this? Well, the good news is you're not, but you do need to document your sourcing activities. You cannot source successfully in your head. Documentation is essential because you won't remember everything. There was a study from Harvard that showed that without a record, 90% of the ideas that you have during the day, 90% of the thoughts that you have are gone by the end of the day and replaced by other things. So you don't want to be left trying to build your business with only 10% of your ideas. So everyone should have what I call a product sourcing notebook, where when you see a trend, when you do your research, you document it. You either print it out or you type it into your smartphone or you type it into your computer, so that when you actually sit down with your catalogs to place orders with your suppliers, you're not sitting there going, what was it now? I know I saw something somewhere, and was it the blue dog houses that were popular, or was it the neon pink dog houses that were popular? And where's that article? And 2 days later, you still don't know. And so you make a guess. Whenever you're out and about and you see some trend information or a popular product, put that into your smartphone. Write it in a notebook, because what you're doing is you're building your own personal product selection catalog. I mean, it's really a custom tailored library of your potential products and product sources. And by the way, you can go out to a mall and pick up a product, turn over the tag, and sometimes the name of the manufacturer is going to be right there on the back of that tag. So what are you going to do? You're going to pop that into your smartphone, or you're going to scan it, or you're going to write it in your product sourcing notebook so that when you get home, you can take action on it. Finally, when you are smart sourcing, you've got to test. Now, I don't want you to go out and spend thousands of dollars on what I call unproven inventory. And unproven inventory is inventory that hasn't sold for you. So if your competitor Joe is selling a particular type of pet product and you look at it and you're like, wow, it's selling really well for Joe and he must be making a killing, and man, I'm going to do what he's doing. It is not proven for you until you test it, until you source that product, sell that product, and look at your numbers, look at the bottom line, and those numbers work for you. It is not a proven product for you. So don't ever look at your competitor. You don't know what they're selling for. You don't know where they're getting their product. You don't know what their margins are. You don't know what their acceptable margins are. They may be working on 10% and your margins are 30% that you want to achieve. So don't ever look at your competition and say, I want to be just like them, until you test. Now, you always want to have at least 10 to 15 new product ideas in the pipeline, so that when you wake up tomorrow morning and mega seller has come into your category and they're selling your exact same product for 20% less than you're selling it for, you're like, okay, time to be nimble. Now I'm going to pull out my list of 10 to 15 new products that I've been working on for the past couple months, and I've got my suppliers ready, and it's time for me to pull the trigger and do some test marketing and bring some of these products in. Some people don't test market products. They do maybe before Christmas or every 6 months. To really be successful at this, you need to test market new products every month. The more you're bringing in new products and testing them to see how your customers respond, the quicker you can restock those products and bring them into your inventory. Now, what you don't need to do is you don't need to call your supplier and order a $200 or $500 minimum order. What you do need to do is bring in small quantities. And one of the easiest ways to do this is with what I call arbitrage sourcing, where you literally go to your local store, or you go on the web to a website or to another marketplace, or sometimes even to eBay. You'll find sellers that have way underpriced their products and they've got the listings ending in the middle of the night and they're going for, sadly, dirt cheap. Use a buying account, not your selling account. Use a buying account, pick up a few units of the inventory, bring it into your store, set it at the price you want to set it for, and see if it sells at that price. And if it does, now you're like, okay, I know there's a market for this. I've done my research. I've looked. I know that this will sell on average for $75. It sold for me. Now I'm going to go and I'm going to find my supplier and I'm going to see what I can do to negotiate some pricing to make it attractive for me to sell, open an account with that supplier, etc. But you don't want to order thousands and thousands of dollars of inventory until you've tested 1 or 2 units, because for one thing, most people don't have that type of a budget. And for another thing, you don't want to waste your money. Now, if you're an established seller and you really know your niche and you really know your product line, are you going to be more able to say, you know, that's a brand new product that my existing supplier is just bringing in. He's telling me it's going to do well. I think it's going to do well based on my experience. You know what? I'm going to pop for the minimum order of $500 and we're going to see what it does. Is that a reasonable approach? Absolutely. But there will be a lot of products that you really don't know if it's going to do well, and that's where testing comes in. This is also what you need to do to build out the successful products in your niche, which is the last part of our SmartSourcing checklist. So in order to build out the successful products in your niche, you're going to expand on what's working and moving into new markets. So for product line expansion, there is what I call power of 10 product sourcing. And what that means is for every successful product that you sell, there are at least 10 additional products or product lines that will do well with your current customer base. So there's always opportunities for expansion, but the best place to start is, what are my best sellers right now? Who are my best customers? What products do they buy that offer me the best margins? What are the products that seem to bring the best customers? That's where you want to start, by branching out on the winners and using all of the strategies that we've talked about. Instead of starting from ground zero, you're starting with your existing successful products. And you're saying, okay, I'm doing really well with this brand. I'm doing really well with these product lines. Now I'm going to look for some additional brands, or maybe I'm going to look for some additional products from within my existing suppliers. And you're going to use that as a springboard to expand that selection, expand that variety, and become a destination site by offering your customers more variety in what you sell. You can also expand into related markets. So getting back to the pet niche, maybe your focus has been on dogs and cats. So if I were going to expand that and I'd really maxed out or leverage my opportunities in the dog and cat market, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to do the research and I'm going to find out, so these house pets, dogs and cats, what are the next most popular house pets currently? Again, we're getting back to trends. So is it bunnies? Is it hamsters? Is it lizards? So what are those popular house pets? and bring in some of those products to test. So maybe you start bringing in some supplies for rabbits, or maybe you start bringing in some supplies for guinea pigs, or maybe it's rats. Rats as pets is actually a very popular trend. So are the reptile categories as pets. That's another very popular trend. So this is how you would expand from being the seller of dog and cat products into the seller of dog, cat, reptile, and guinea pig products. And once you do that, you will be able to expand not only the products that you offer to your existing customer base, but you will be able to attract a new customer base. And getting back to our product line wheel, within whatever category that you sell, you can expand by filling in any one of these circles. So our smart sourcing checklist, we've looked at merchandise to marketplace match, frequent idea hotspots, pay attention to trends, document, test, and expand on what's working into new markets. Now we have just one other thing that we need to go into, and that is multi-channel sourcing. And this webinar really is about product selection, but I really wanted to touch on the multi-channel sourcing, and maybe that, how to find those suppliers, is a separate webinar at some point. Here's the thing about sourcing. It used to be people would say, well, I only source wholesale, or I only will do drop shipping, or I'm only going to do closeout and liquidation. You can't do that anymore. You've got to leverage every channel that you have at your disposal. So multiple sourcing channels means you're sourcing some products from wholesale. You may be leveraging drop shipping as a delivery tool. And I just disclaimer, please be very careful with drop shipping on eBay, because you will get dinged on your DSRs. It can kill your TRS status unless you are working with a company that ships practically immediately. And so I even hesitated to put that in there, but I know people will ask, and that's why I did. Drop shipping, the drop shipper is not, they don't care about your status on eBay. They're working on their own time frame. Unless you are working with a supplier who you know, and especially to maintain top-rated seller status, is going to ship literally immediately, drop shipping is not going to work for you. So that could be a whole nother webinar in and of itself. So I put it there. Major disclaimer, I'm not a big advocate of it given the new eBay policies. Trade show and merchandise smarts. Absolutely, hands down, one of the best ways to supply your inventory. Closeout and liquidation. You get great deals on products, but there's more risk because of the product quality. Also, you may have to buy in quantities that are bigger than you can handle. But it is something that you can look at closeout liquidation even locally. Maybe you get a great deal on closeout at your local store, or maybe you have a warehouse nearby where you can go and inspect the merchandise. Importing. Now it's much easier to import products, smaller quantities, with companies like Global Sources or Alibaba or AliExpress. Again, all of the principles apply. Just because you can import it for cheap does not mean it's going to sell. So you have to put it through the smart sourcing checklist. Arbitrage, new products, pre-owned products. Arbitrage simply means buying in one marketplace and selling it in another. So there's a million marketplaces on the internet that you could buy product from and bring to eBay to fill in those gaps. There's a million local stores in your area that you could bring products in from the local store and resell it on eBay. Local. We all live in areas that offer local products that nobody can get until they come to our local city or our town. Are there opportunities for you to source there? Partnering, consignment, working with other retail brick and mortar establishments to maybe resell or buy their inventory outright and bring it to eBay. And creating your own products and product bundles. So actually bundling together, for example, getting back to the pet supply niche, maybe you bundle together a bunch of pet components and create a new puppy kit or a new kitten kit or how to bring home your first lizard. There's all sorts of ways to leverage multiple sourcing channels to supply your inventory. So don't limit yourself to only one channel. If I had to pick the first to get started with, I would have everybody go to a trade show. I would have everybody, if you can, if there's one in your local area, go to a merchandise smart, talk to the vendors, talk to the suppliers, get familiar with that world. It can be scary at first, but it's not. When you know what to do, it's very, very lucrative to go in and get involved with suppliers. They can be your best friend and your best partner in helping you build your business. So, Kat, it's question time.
Wow,
I made it.
we have a huge list. Karen's been compiling them all, so I'm going to let her handle them. But they didn't seem to come in specific order, so we let you finish, and I'm really appreciative that we did because you got a lot of information packed in there, Lisa.
Yes.
We're definitely looking forward to
I was
part two.
racing
Maybe
towards the
part
finish
three.
line.
We're definitely looking forward to part two and maybe part three at some point. I'll let Karen start with the questions. Thanks.
Hi, Lisa.
Hey,
Okay,
Karen.
the first question was the tips that you've given throughout this webinar, are they also good tips for sourcing products for Amazon FBA?
Yes, absolutely. You know, the thing about sourcing is that when you really learn the fundamentals and the principles, you can use those and apply them to any marketplace. The only difference between what we talked about here, sourcing on eBay, is your merchandise to market match. If you want to source for Amazon or any other marketplace, you need to look at the Amazon marketplace, for example. So what sells on eBay may or may not sell on Amazon and vice versa. So if you're going to look for another marketplace, you've got to delve into that marketplace, use the tools available, and make sure that there's a merchandise to marketplace match for the marketplace you want to sell in, because there's different customers over there.
Great. And this question is from Shar. Ron wants to bring a bunch of stuff, of Olympic stuff back from London. Can it be sold on Amazon?
You know, I would have to check the Amazon policies in terms of whether or not that merchandise can be sold. I would recommend that that's a good thing to go check, and also check with Amazon seller support because it's Olympic branded merchandise. My guess is that it will be fine. I've seen it there before, but policies change, and so I would actually check directly with Amazon on that. But you know, that brings up a really good point. Cultural and social and society, whatever is hot at the time, what do people want to buy? They want to buy that. So they want to buy the Olympic merchandise. What's hot now? Everything related to Hunger Games, the movie, the clothes, the jewelry. There's even Hunger Game wedding trend merchandise that's super hot this spring. So if it's in the media and people are talking about it and people are excited, that's a huge sourcing opportunity.
And a great movie, too.
Yes.
The next question is about if you could just briefly review multi-level product line, multi-level inventory again.
Yeah, absolutely. So multi-level inventory, let's say that you sell bedding and you sell sheets. So sheets we know come in anywhere from like the 250 thread count, which are generally $25 and under, to the $1,500 thread count, which are $300-400 depending on what size it is. So what happens is people really get stuck in this image problem of their business, and they say, well, we're going to source the cheapest products because I think that's what our buyers want. But you don't bring in any other level. So you might bring in the sheets that are $25 or $50 and they're doing really well. And so you think, well, that's what my customers want. But you never test market the sheets that are $100 or that are $250. Until you test market those, you don't know if there's a market for that for your business. And so someone will come into your store, and if it's a new customer, they might test you out with a less expensive version. But if you don't have any higher end versions to upsell them to, and they decide that, we really do want to go with a better quality product, but you're not offering it, they're going to leave your store and they're going to go off in search of a higher quality product in someone else's store. So, especially with your meat and potatoes product lines, the ones that you sell regularly, offer different levels, different quality levels, different price point levels. Test those, and you may be very surprised to find that when you bring in something that is at a price point where in your mind you're convinced that no one would ever buy it at that price from you, once you test it, you could find that your customers would love it and it could be your next best seller. But again, don't break the bank in doing multi-level sourcing. Bring in a couple units, test them out, see if they sell, and then go from there.
The next question is, how do you know the right balance? So a big demand with lots of items being sold in a category could mean a great demand, but also tough to sell into it. So how do you find that balance?
So the question is if there is a big demand in a category and there's a lot being sold there, but it may be hard for you to break in because that market's already cornered by other sellers?
Yes.
Okay, that's a really good question. And you will find, and a lot of people will gravitate towards exactly those markets, the markets that are the hardest to break into, because a big seller or a couple medium-sized sellers really do have a corner on the marketplace. So here's your decision point. If you want to get into a particular category and you see that it's got a strong sell-through rate, but you also see that there's 1, 2, or 3 sellers that really have a lock on all of those sales, and then there's like a bunch of other sellers who really aren't doing anything, and that, by the way, is one of the advantages of Terapeak, is because it will give you that data. You have to have something else of value in order to break into that marketplace. So if everybody is selling the same 5 colors of the same product, what else can you bring? Do you have access to a color or a style that they don't have? Do you have some type of a source that is going to give you some price flexibility? Do you have the ability to bundle those products into something else? So if everyone is selling the same basic gardening tools, could you take those tools, put them together in a weekend gardener kit, and now you're not competing apples to apples. You've created your own exclusive product. Many times, if a category is really competitive and you're coming up against big guys, unless you really have something unique to offer, you are hitting your head painfully against a brick wall, and you are much better off to drill down and go into a subcategory that they are not interested in, and that's where you start. I have a saying, when in doubt, niche it out. So if the big guys are doing the surface sourcing, the top 2%, and you're just like, there's just no way I can compete, that's okay. Don't let that bother you. Niche it out. What's underneath that? What's the next subcategory? What's the next subcategory? And look for those pockets of opportunities, because generally the big guys, they don't want to be bothered with that because they want to move volume. All right. They want to move thousands of units of the same item. They don't want to do all of the trend research and deal with the expertise and all of the things that can give you the competitive advantage as a seller who is maybe not a big box. So drill down into that category and see where else there are opportunities. The other thing is if they're offering 2 styles and the manufacturer has 6 styles, don't bring in the 2 styles that everyone else is selling. Test market the other 4 styles that the other sellers aren't selling and see if there's a market for those. But don't keep beating your head against a wall, trying to be competitive in a market where really you just can't get the competitive advantage.
I love that. That's another pearl I'm going to hang on to. When in doubt, niche it out. Cool, Lisa.
Thanks. Okay, and then another person needs the trade show directory website again.
Oh, the trade show directory website is T as in top, S as in seller, N as in Nancy, N as in Nancy.com. So TSNN.com. And by the way, that website will show you every single trade show in the world that you can attend. It also shows you consumer shows. So consumer show would be like the wedding show. So let's say you missed the trade show for wedding apparel, but you really want to get into the wedding niche. It will also show you the consumer shows that the general public can go to. And what's really cool about that is the vendors are there not to talk to retailers, but to talk to consumers. So what do you do at a consumer show? You just go in and ask a whole bunch of questions and be very curious, and they will see you as a customer, and they will tell you all sorts of great information that you can then apply to your business.
Cool. Kind of sneaky too.
Well, and by the way, I'm not advocating lying. I mean, they're not going to ask you like, "Oh, are you a retailer?" But you just go in. You're like, "Oh, this is really cool. Is this a new product?" Or,
Exactly.
So, what are the top wedding trend colors for spring? Or I heard Hunger Games are hot. Do you guys have any Hunger Games wedding favors? And so you're there asking questions, honest questions, and you're leveraging their expertise.
And learning to leverage is probably one of the best advantages you can have working online.
Absolutely.
Okay, the next question is there a webinar for finding trade publications?
A webinar for finding trade There's not a webinar for finding trade publications. There is a course for finding trade publications, and I'm going to just, if I can switch slides here, one of the things that I teach in my Power of 10 product sourcing course is how to find trade publications of any type in any niche. And there's a whole bunch of ways you can do it. I mean, Google obviously is one of the ways that you can find trade publications. Depending on what your search is, you can Google trade publications, and then you can Google the keywords for the niche that you sell in. So pet supply, trade publications. But there's also other ways. The cool thing about the retail industry is once you are on the inside, you get connected, and it's actually a lot smaller than people would believe, especially when you're in a specific industry. People know each other, and you can get connected to a lot of cool things. But I would start with Google and just do the keyword search for the trade publication, and then the industry. So footwear trade publication, pet supplies trade publication.
Another question is what percentage is considered a good margin?
I was
waiting
waiting for someone to ask that question. Well, it all depends on who you are and what you want. Now, if you sell electronics, you're going to be happy with a 3 to 8% margin. If you sell craft products, you may be looking at a 30 to 40% margin. So here's the reality of margins. Okay, number one, every product is going to carry with it a different margin. Okay, so people who say, I will only sell products where I can make X amount of margins, that's not how retail works. You can have a rule of thumb where you're looking on, and I will say on average, if we could hit an ideal margin in online retail, we're looking at 30 to 40%. And I'm talking wholesale, by the way. I'm not talking like thrift store clearance, etc. I'm talking wholesale products. So let's say we're shooting for a 30 to 40% margin after all costs of our product. That is about the closest I can get to giving you an average. But here's the thing. It all depends on what the cost of your product is. So 30 to 40% of a $50 product, you're going to have to sell a lot of those to make some decent money. 30 to 40% of a $500 product, and now your hard numbers, the amount of money you're making is completely different. But if I'm just starting out, I might not have the inventory capital to source products that retail for $300 to $500. I may have to start with products that retail for $30. And so part of it is going to change as your business grows, as your financial resources grow. And by the way, I know you guys had cabbage on a while ago. That's a great way to help with your sourcing, with your product sourcing capital. But you've got to, the bottom line is really at the end of the month, you've got to look at your bottom line. So if you're selling a bunch of products that you're only making 10% on, and at the end of the month, your bottom line is 3%, we have a major, major, major problem. If you sell one product, for example, the camera that has a 10% margin, but with it, you're also selling the lens, the tripod, and the case that has a 40% margin, you're not going to get rid of the camera because the camera is what drew the customer to your store. And then you were able to cross-sell these other products with them. So the margins that you have to look at in your online business is what's your net profit margin at the end of the month? I mean, when all is said and done, what is your net profit margin for your business? And again, having that assortment of products is critically important. So if you were to go with the guideline of, I will only sell something that brings me a 40% margin, then you're going to eliminate other products that you can cross-sell. By the same token, if you get something that's really hot and you happen to come into a product at the beginning of the cycle where you're one of a few sellers, you could be enjoying, at least for the time being, margins of 100%. I mean, it just depends on what the product is. It depends on the category. It depends on when you get in. If you're the number one seller and you're the only seller of that hot Hunger Games pin and you're able to charge a premium price for it, you may be doubling. You may be making 100% margins. So it really depends on so many factors. But at the end of the month, your business has got to be profitable. And if you are selling too many low margin products, then you're going to run into trouble. And I also will say this because, and I know we have a lot of multi-channel sellers, I also need to say that your margins will be different in different marketplaces and on your website. So for example, same product, I sell it on eBay, I sell it on Amazon, and I sell it from my website. I'm going to have 3 different margins in those 3 different sales channels. Now, does that mean that because I'm only making 25% margin on eBay and I'm making 30% on Amazon and I'm making 40% on my website, does that mean that I shouldn't sell the product on eBay? No, not at all. That 25%, if there's demand for that product, yeah, I absolutely want to have eBay as my sales channel because I might be selling more in volume on eBay, even though I'm making more money on my website. So, I mean, margins could be could be a complete webinar as well. But you really have to consider all of the factors when you are looking at margins. And, for people also who are test marketing new products, if you're not selling a lot of volume, your margins may be lower, but as you build that market share on eBay, you may be able to decrease your cost of goods, the cost that you buy from the manufacturer, and increase your margin. Or the supplier might be willing to negotiate free shipping, which is going to increase your margin. Or you might be able to take some advantage of some end of quarter special deal that the supplier has, and you can increase your margin. So margin, it's always the moving target, but you really have to pay attention to the bottom line at the end of the month.
Excellent. I'm so glad you addressed that because it really is one of my ding ding bell question. It depends because you can't just set a margin and not sell anything below that. Really good discussion. Awesome.
And the last question we have right now is if you want to find out about doing seasonal type selling, is there a place where you can find a list of seasonal type items and what time of year they're most popular?
So that's a really good question. And I want to say that in every category, there are different seasons and different types of seasonal items. So depending on what category you're in, for example, maybe you're in the jewelry category and you may find that seasonal in the jewelry category is going to be certain products for wedding season and certain types of products and gemstones for Mother's Day sales and certain types of products for holiday sales. So there's a couple different things. Number one, to really hone into what the seasonal products are for your category, that's where you want to get into those trade publications, because the trade publications, again, they are publishing the information 6 to 12 to 18 months out so that the retailer has enough time to budget and source those items. So in the online world, we move pretty fast when it comes to sourcing. In the brick and mortar world, which these trade publications are also geared towards, you know, some brick and mortar businesses, they're budgeting a year out for what they're going to buy in the holiday selling season. So number one thing, find out what the seasons are in your category by reading the trade publications. Seasonal selling is also something that I talk about a lot, again, in my Power of 10 product sourcing program, which I'll talk about in a minute. I also have, I believe, I have a blog post actually at my blog at lisasuttora.com that's got a spring and summer seasonal selling calendar there from last year, but I'm going to be republishing one here in not too long. And then the other thing is that consumer publications as well. When you get the magazine and they're talking about, you know, it's Halloween and these are the products that are selling, all of that stuff needs to go into your inventory planning notebook so you start to build your own seasonal calendar. So it really depends on the category. I can tell you that between now and July 4th, there are about 11 different general selling seasons, and we're here in the end of April, and there's about 11 seasons that you can capitalize on between now and July 4th.
The fun ones too, Lisa, like International Spaghetti Day and things like that, right?
Yes, I have a post on my blog about that too as well. You guys check out my blog and go look.
.com is your blog, Lisa?
At lisasuttora.com right now.
lisasuttora.com. Definitely will look you up, and we hope to hear you back for part 2. And I'm thinking part 3, Lisa, the way the questions are still pouring in. We do need to end. We're half an hour past our hour, and Lisa's a very busy lady. Thank you so much for staying an extra 30 minutes just to answer questions. If we did not get to your question and you posted it in the chat room, please send the question to kat@topratedsellerwebinars.com, and I'll coordinate with Lisa, and we'll try to get you the answer that we were not able to get you today. Also, the last question that came in that I saw was about cross-selling on Amazon. And I just want to let people know, although Lisa is also an expert on Amazon, these webinars are really geared towards the eBay seller. A lot of the stuff that she talked about today, the product sourcing, can definitely be applied to your Amazon business and your website business. However, as far as cross-selling, if you're looking for specific information about FBA, there's a wonderful podcast that Lisa's on twice a week, FBAradio.com, and you can learn all about selling on Amazon FBA, and you can talk to Lisa twice a week live, right, Lisa?
Absolutely. And you know, product sourcing is one of those skills that you will use no matter whether you're starting out or whether you're an experienced seller. You will use it for the life of your business. And if there was one skill that I could say you really need to hone, product sourcing number 1, marketing number 2, and also, of course, customer service, very important. But product sourcing is not something that you learn once and then forget. It's something that is an acquired skill. You will grow, you will learn, you will improve as you do it more and more. If you feel shaky, that's okay. Just keep doing more of it and you will get those skills. And I will just share, for those of you who really want to go step by step, I do have my course. I call it my Product Sourcing MBA, Power of 10 Product Sourcing. 7 modules, step by step. We go into depth. The course is actually about 25 hours, believe it or not. All online, self-paced learning. You guys can see that at power10productsourcing.com. For those of you who ask questions about trade shows, we have a great program. It runs about 90 minutes sourcing products at trade shows. And you can find that at whatdoisell.com/trade shows. And then hopefully you can see all of the contact information if you want to connect. Facebook, Twitter, on my blog, reach out. I would love to hear from people. and help you become more successful in your product sourcing, because your product line is the engine of your business. And this is a
Absolutely. If you don't have something to sell, you don't have a business. Lisa's also very active and also has a course on Pinterest. So if you're interested in that new social media platform, you can find Lisa at pinterest.com/Lisa Suttora. Also, again, the fun of the webinar doesn't end here. We do have a Facebook group that's been very active recently. Lisa will ask you to stop by. Just look for Top Rated Seller Webinars on Facebook, and you'll be able to ask your questions. And as far as what Lisa was saying about how you get better at this, absolutely. And that's another reason for you to sign up for the newsletter at topratedsellerwebinars.com, because as soon as I can get it done, hopefully by midnight tonight, we'll have a YouTube copy of this webinar, and you can listen to it again. Because if you're like me, each time you listen to Lisa, you learn something new. Lisa, I think we have one other slide in this deck, don't we, to tell them about what's coming next month?
Uh-oh.
That's okay. We don't need a slide for talking about John Lawson. We have a webinar coming up next month, and it's going to be with Mr. John Lawson, Colder Ice himself. It's going to be on Thursday, May 17th. This one's going to be at 5 p.m. Pacific time. So evidently, Mr. Lawson performs better in the evening. So be here, and you'll know all about it. You can sign up now. Space is limited, just like it was for Lisa's webinar. So sign up for the John Lawson webinar, which is titled Going Social for Online Retailers, presented by John Lawson himself. And you can log on at topratedsellerwebinars.com, sign up for that webinar, and sign up for the newsletter. Thank you so much for being here again, Lisa. We had a great time with you.
Thanks for having me, Kat, and thanks for everybody who listened, and keep doing that product sourcing.
Oh, great. Keep doing it, guys, and we'll see you on the web, on Facebook, and on the blog. Have a great, profitable day. Bye-bye.